do you build that powerful brand strategy when you're launching an artist or a product? What are some of the things that go into that? The questions that you ask yourself, whether it's to your clients or the solutions that you're coming up with. How do you build that strategy?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question. And the way we used to do things was we used to just start working, right? That was like, I think before you sort of knew how to game plan, it was like, just start working and we'll figure it out. And now it's much more, is even before starting to work, is answering the question of what does success look like? I think that's really the important first step, is trying to figure out like, what can we do where the client, artist or otherwise, feels like this is what is going to feel like success. Because I think that sometimes we skip some steps. I think we sometimes, will move all as people, we have very low or a very we want to go to the next thing right away, and we don't take time to actually stop and appreciate the small little wins. So for me, it's kind of putting something together with the team where we can measure success and measure some of those impact dates and look at what growth looks like in real time. Because sometimes those first sets of goals are the hardest ones to get. It's really hard to go from 0 to 60, so to speak. And then once you get to that point, it kind of picks up. But I think having measurable goals, and for some artists, especially when you're talking to a new artist and looking at an overall campaign, sometimes they'll say, hey, well, if we got a review in this publication, that would be like the end goal. Like everything else would be amazing. And so when you get those things, it's able to build and help brand the story of what you're trying to get to. But ultimately, for some artists, it's about being signed to a label. Ultimately, for some artists, it's being able to go on tour. Obviously, all of that pre-COVID aside or post-COVID aside, I think for every single artist, it's different. And I think that has been probably the biggest change, is that there's no box to put things into anymore. Like, I think there used to be, hey, well, check these 5 boxes and then you're on your way. And it's just not like that anymore. Every artist is different. Every artist has a different vision and version of what their blueprint looks like. And it's a matter of coming up with all those pieces. In some cases, like, we'll sometimes talk to some artists and like they'll have really not much outside of like 3 or 4 songs recorded, and then also have a video. And it's like, okay, well, is there behind the scenes footage of the video? Okay, there is. Great. Let's take that one video and make 35 pieces of content out of it. Like, let's make sure that we actually use that content, so we're not just dropping a video and then all of a sudden it's like, now what? So it's just a matter of building that together and building it over time so we can ladder up.
Let me ask you about that, because I think that's really amazing. What you just said is that the behind the scenes footage, like, you would take that and make 35 pieces of content. So you really think it is about, getting as much stuff you can and rolling it out? What are some of those formats that you would put it out on, like cutting it up and putting it on Instagram or?
Yeah, on obviously the social channels have changed so much too with who the audience of the artist is. What goes on Twitter or Facebook may not make sense on TikTok and Instagram. So it really is a matter of just understanding the audience and understanding what content we have access to. And, also that some artists are not good at promoting their own music. They're really good at living their life, and they're really comfortable with giving sort of the backstage pass their life, but they're not really confident in like, hey, go listen to my song, and so it's kind of figuring all those things out. One of the pieces that we do before taking on any campaign in the social sort of space is we do an entire audit of the artist's social media, so that we can really look at everything and figure, which sites actually have a lot of engagement, which places do not have engagement, where is there, pieces that you want to control, what are the pieces that you want nothing to do with, and sort of help build a plan out from that. But it is looking at, I think right now, especially, like, everything costs a lot of money and there's a lot of limited resources. So it's a matter of taking what is the content, how can we spread it out as long as possible and build a plan so that there's time to promote. And I think that's the key for everything, is that run up time to promotion.
I love the word engagement as well, right? Because it's one thing to post your stuff or to give the behind the scenes look at your life, but how do you get those fans engaged into what you're doing and be an active participant? So what are some of those strategies that you suggest to your clients to increase that engagement?
Yeah, it really, once again, it depends on every single one. I think in some cases it could be doing things like, if you're at a certain level, whether it's giving some things away, whether it's doing like a remix contest, whether it's, it really depends on the artist. But a lot of times is looking at, once again, going back to the first part of the question of like, what are the goals? Like, what are the initial goals that we have? For a lot of artists, and looking at, even looking at things like interviews, right? Interviews are a huge part of an artist's career, but not all artists know how to do interviews. There sort of has to be a training ground. One of the things I realized when I was doing college radio, and even still to this day, is that for the most part, any artist that we're setting up an interview for, or they're doing an interview with like a college radio or non-commercial radio interview, it's probably one of their first interviews, both as the interviewer and the interviewee. So and that learning how to do that's actually really important. So even some of the preparation of the things you want to cover off on, and what to say, what not to say, even some of that coaching goes into it. It's actually really important, but not something that we really think about. If you don't have any media training and someone asks you a pointed question, you may say something relatively regretful that then gets put somewhere else. And, there's a lot of, I didn't mean it that way. So even things like that, just like understanding what kind of messaging we want to get out there, and kind of understanding that like, this is the first of many opportunities. Let's do a good interview here.
Yeah, it's so true, because I remember working with a young artist, and they didn't want to go do college radio. They thought it was beneath them. And I'm somebody who came up like loving college radio. I mean, even yesterday I was driving back from the beach and we were playing college radio because commercial radio wasn't playing anything. And I was just saying how much I love it, but it's so true as far as just getting kind of your reps, your at-bats of learning that way, because you have to really know how to say a good, concise answer that's leading to something, and not just, oh, I just made music because whatever, you know what I mean? So
yeah, and I think it's something that like, even I think for a lot of young people out there, it's like I always say to my team, and even otherwise, like you have to kind of go in with understanding what you want to get out of everything that you do. Whether you're talking to your landlord and you want to be late paying the rent, or you need light bulbs changed, the tactic you take in going about doing it is going to probably determine the outcome in getting what you want. So a lot of it is based on that. Life is a negotiation to a certain extent, and learning how to talk to people and understanding how to lead with empathy and all those different things that I think everyone struggles with in general right now. It's a good place to learn it, and it's still about your art. This is still about art and about music, or about pop culture, or about a relationship that you're building, and so much of what we all do in the music space is built on relationships. And I do think that we're at a point now, which is exciting, that people want to work with people they like, and people that they have a rapport with, and people that they feel they're trusted. And I think more than ever, I think there was a time where that necessarily wasn't the case, but I think now when you're hiring people for work, you want to hire people you like, you want to hire people that you respect, and that goes a long way with it. And I think that's a big part of building, any kind of branding or any kind of sustainable effort is remembering that you are the conduit to that person's art, or you're the conduit to your own art, and that the impression that you leave is going to be remembered.